Liebe BMW-M-Freunde, ich verspreche Ihnen...
Dear BMW M fans and friends, I promise you an exclusive glance behind the scenes of the M Studio in Garching near Munich. Today we would like to welcome the youngest member of the BMW M family, the new BMW M2 Coupe. And this super sports car is already today in the pole position in the international media. Car and Driver, for example, writes M in its purest form. This could be BMW's best-looking car when it debuts. This is what the BMWBlog states. Wide body, awesome car, that's what Automotorsport writes. And Autobild says compact, powerful, and awesome. Today we have the creators of this car here, the creators who have realized the project of BMW M2 Coupe. And we look forward to speaking to the engineers, the mechanics, the managers, the people behind the scenes. And we will give you some exclusive insights into the development process, and we will certainly also introduce the BMW M2 Coupe to you in great detail. I have Hussein Al-Attar here for the exterior design of the BMW M2 Coupe. He is the responsible designer. And if you're standing next to your baby, that's a special feeling. Yes, it is. If you take a look at the car, what was the most important thing on the design? What did you think was realized excellently? Well, the proportions speak for itself. The car is very compact, yet quite wide, which is a typical feature of BMW M cars. If we now look at the new BMW M2 Coupe and compare it with the, in parentheses, the normal M2 or the normal 2 Series Coupe, what's the difference? Well, we try to express the sporty nature of the car, and I think the width of the car is really something that we realized in a fantastic way. You have to stand next to the car to grasp how wide it is. 60 millimeters in front and 100 millimeters in the rear, wider than the normal 2 Series Coupe. And if you walk to the front end, you can see that also on the front end we have a very powerful expression with the outer air inlets and the winglets on the side. If you now look at the side view, then you see the very pronounced wheel arches to emphasize the powerful character of the vehicle. And the rear is also very important. I hope that is the perspective that everybody else will see. You can see we have 4 tailpipes, which are moved fairly inward in order to, again, emphasize the width of the car. And we try to keep the rear end very clean. So a wide body, that's a great compliment, isn't it? What was the inspiration? Well, naturally, the M vehicles, because the M history is very rich in inspiring models. Whether it was the E30 M3 or the 2002 or whatever. Fantastic cars, but we started with the 2 Series and we looked what would best suit the M2. A great job. It looks great. Thank you, Mr. Al-Attar. And on the new BMW M2 Coupe, you can actually see a fantastic design, but a genuine M needs to drive like a genuine M. And let's look what's inside the car.
This is the M2, and it's the most anticipated BMW in years. It follows the same recipe as the 1 Series M Coupe, borrowing parts from the bigger, wider M4. To fit that hardware, it gets bulging fenders that give it a good old-fashioned, awesome bulldog stance. But is this one a real M car, or the sort of thing marketing departments dream up and enthusiasts dismiss? Stay tuned, and we'll find out.
Hello, this is the BMW M2. Isn't it cute? That is the BMW M4. Isn't it beautiful? The question on your mind is going to be, how fast is it? So right off the bat, 0 to 60, identical. Skid pad, identical. Braking distance, identical. Figure 8, identical. In fact, the only place where the M4 performs better than the M2 is after 60 miles an hour. But really, is it me and my poor battered driver's license, or does what happens after 60 miles an hour just not matter at all unless you're at a racetrack?
Jason, M2 blah 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 blah. If the M2 is such hot dookie, why don't we find out on a racetrack if the little brother can keep up with the big boy?
All right, I'll get in the little brother and you get in the big boy.
Better stand on it.
I'll stand on your head in a minute. All right, Randy's inside crying because he was so upset that the M2 is faster, but the M2 is faster. And as much as I'm a fan of the M2 because it's more fun than the M4, all right, so the 2 Series is a bit of a tub, but it doesn't matter. It actually beat the M4 around the track. And I think that comes down to it's predictable, it's easy, it loves to rotate. It's a car that you or I can get into a track and get right to its limits without risking spinning. With that said, these are road cars, and their road performance and the fun and the experience is kind of a lot more important. So let's leave the track, let's go out on the road, and let's talk about how awesome the M2 is.
This thing is a riot. It is so much fun, and that's something I really didn't think BMW was capable of doing anymore. I mean, the engine just sings, the steering tells me everything I need to know. The M2 is a sign that someone's paying attention over at M. They spent the time to tune this car, to refine it, and to make it do more than just post great numbers. Sure, the M2 has warts, but they're all minor things like missing temperature gauges and stupid throttle blipping. The important stuff is all there. A singing straight 6 under the hood, flared fenders, rear wheels on fire. Oh, and most importantly, an idiot with a big grin in the crooked driver's seat. This is a real driver's car, the kind of car we didn't think BMW was even capable of building these days. It's no exaggeration to say the M2 marks the return of the ultimate driving machine. Welcome back, BMW.
If you lived in the 1990s and you wanted to buy a fast car, but you couldn't afford a Porsche 911, you bought one of these. A BMW M3.
It was quick, it was rear-wheel drive, it was affordable-ish, and most importantly, on a wet roundabout, it would do big skids. It was therefore perfect.
Fast forward 20 years and you can still buy an M3. It looks like this. Yes, it's very fast and very impressive, but the M3 isn't really an M3 anymore. It's become bigger, more complicated, much more grown up. So what if you want your M3 like they used to be? This is the M2. Named in honour of one of Kent's finest stretches of motorway. There you are, science. It really is simply brilliant, the M2. It takes you back to when driving was still brilliantly simple. It takes you back to the 1990s. In fact, BMW has made a mistake here. It's not really an M2. It's an M3. There you go.
But there is time to say that I think this is the best M car BMW has ever made.
It is vicious.
But there is nothing here which has flummoxed the M2. This thing is an absolute masterpiece. Like I said, it is the best M car BMW's ever made.
Those were the targets, and at BMW M engine is always the big thing. So we developed a completely new engine. So it's an inline-six, twin-turbo, direct injection with a Valvetronic. So we could use all the technology that is available at BMW, but then the magic was to make it a very emotional, sporty, race car type engine. And so this engine can rev up to 7,600 RPM. So the story for me, what I keep telling my engineers, our philosophy is high revving turbo. And for some people that might be a contradiction in itself, but I think this is the way to go, because you have the emotion and you have the fuel efficiency and you have this typical experience when you drive the car, what M stands for. BMW M cars, they bring the race car driving experience, the emotion of driving a race car into everyday driving on a high level of quality, like engine. So we try to reduce all the rotating masses. So the crankshaft is a lightweight, very high strength crankshaft, and we had to make the engine capable to rev high. So, and at the same time be very efficient. So we did away with the liners, with the steel lighters. We have a very thin iron coating. It's very good for the friction level, but we almost took 3 kilograms out of the crankcase by that. It's a closed deck design. Our other inline sixes at BMW, they have an open deck design. So we added a mechanical driven water pump because we need tons of water going through this engine if you really push it hard. And with the turbos, you come up with a lot of heat. So we had to get rid of the heat. So it's a complete different cooling concept in this engine. And for sure, then we have the turbochargers. They are not the biggest ones, but they're the fastest ones. So they have very little inertia, so they love to change their rotating speed. They really go up fast, and we have some nice wizardry in the Valvetronic and in the digital motor electronic system to keep them running when you push that Sport Plus button. They perform on already club sport level. You have to do things that typically you do on race cars. So we integrated, so to get an idea what cars these are. Yeah, and all the suspension, the kinematics, every part of the suspension is completely new design, new developed. Has nothing to do with a regular 3 Series or regular 4 Series. And you will find this right away, making 1 or 2 corners, and you get the idea of what the M philosophy is. Bringing race car precision, race car emotion into everyday driving. So you can go to the grocery store and just enjoy the precision of an M car.
Competition. There's something about this. It's quite spiky. It's quite good fun. There's a personality here that I really, really enjoy. Yeah, I'm taking one of these. Let's do a bit of slidey stuff here. Look at this. Why is it that BMW's engineers just know how to make cars feel super settled when they slide? It's partly the way they let them go all the way to the limits of grip, and the tyre never gets really spiky. The drop off in grip is always consistent. Also the power steering.
And you get behind the wheel of this and it's insanely, you feel very connected to it. It's tail happy, you can have fun driving it, it's fast, it handles well. The dual clutch is insanely good, almost supercar levels of good, and you have a manual transmission option. The other huge pro is, let's be real, it's still in that affordable price range. Yes, $60,000 is a lot. As with any car, it's a lot of money, but this gives you such satisfaction driving it. You have to go at least 15 years back in the BMW world to get this level of driver involvement. Now here's the
number 9, BMW M2CS. Now when the M2 launched in 2016, it was a revelation. Where in recent years, the M3 had grown to the size of, a 5 Series, the M2 was a tiny 2-door coupe. The new for 2012 M2CS has taken that one step further, borrowing the larger inline six from the M2CS, 444 horsepower with 406 pound-feet of torque with either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual-clutch auto. It's not like a DSG. It's based on a manual transmission, so when you put it in neutral, it rolls. There's no torque converter. It's like as close to like an electronic manual as anyone has ever been. It's phenomenal. What's so cool about the M2CS for me is the fact that we have a very tiny car with tons of horsepower and a huge focus on handling. It's awesome.
Are you still offering both kind of gearboxes?
As same as with the competition, we offer the manual as well as the double clutch system. The double clutch is faster, the manual is cooler.
There we go. Well, to Marcus Flasch, as a private person now, I know you have a family and you love the racing. If you were a salesman, to whom would you offer the M2CS instead of the competition?
Well, I would offer the CS to the one who is lucky enough to get the car, because you can imagine it's limited supply, demand is higher than what we can offer, and if you're lucky to get the CS, then go for one. It's also a robust investment. Our limited edition cars have always proven to be very robust investments. For anyone else, go for the competition or wait for the upcoming Sondermodelle of maybe an M3 or an M4 next generation.
And I'm sure the car also offers sheer driving pleasure.
I can guarantee you that this car drives better, even better than it looks, and I think it looks stunning already.
It does.
Number 3, best BMW of all time. This one is going to be controversial. The current M2 competition, M2CS, and just the regular M2. It's going to be really controversial, but I think as this car ages, we will look back at it as one of the greats. I really believe that. The regular M2 is very nice, but this is specifically kind of more geared towards the competition, the manual competition, and the CS. The simple truth is this: BMW is going to have to start electrifying its models. Everybody's doing it. Plug-in hybrids, electric cars, it's the wave of the future. And you see it on everything, even supercars, LaFerrari, 918 Spider, Taycan. I mean, this is how the industry is going, which is fine, except for those of us who really enjoy the feel of a, stick shift car with a gasoline engine, the sound, the feel of building power. That's going to start to go away. Now, it's replaced by other feels, but it doesn't necessarily always replace that original feeling. And this car, the current M2 competition, the CS, it just kind of feels like it might be the end of the manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, gas-powered, right-sized BMW that you can toss around. It almost feels like the conclusion of what the 2002 started 40 years ago. Now, I reserve the right to change this if the successor that follows up on the current M2 is still gas-powered, manual, rear drive, and better than the current model, which might happen. But even if that happens, my thought is the next one won't be. Like this might be the last, the current M2, for this kind of car, but if it isn't, the next one will definitely be the last. After that, it's gonna be a plug-in hybrid, manual transmission's gotta go. So if we're not at the end of the line now, we're really close to it. And I think these cars will be revered. The M2CS, the competition, sort of in the way that this car is. Frankly, the Ford GT, the Porsche Carrera GT, sort of the last analog supercars. Everybody agrees, modern supercars, plug-in hybrids, they're great, but there's a reason that this car is worth double what it was when it was new. Same with Carrera GT. And I think the M2 competition, the M2CS with a stick shift, they will be viewed with sort of that lens of the last analog sports cars that BMW ever gave us in the old sense. Or maybe the next generation will. But still, you're in that world. You can see this doesn't have long left. You can tell this is coming up on the end, and these might be some of the most special.
Hello, I'm Augusto Farfus, and I'm here at the Nürburgring for the traditional 24 hours race. Behind of me, there is the M2CS Racing in a very special livery. BMW has put all the names of all the winners of this fantastic race. And look who's here. In 2010, my name is there. That was the last victor for BMW.
This right here might actually be the best BMW ever made, in my opinion. If you think the M2 competition was cool, this takes it up about 10 notches. This is the M2CS 2020 model year. So what we're gonna do in this video is gonna have a look at this absolutely stunning design from a front, side, rear, interior, and then we're gonna take this for a drive. If you're looking at the M2CS from a straight front view like you're doing right now, it has this both elegant look to it, but it also has this very confident, almost borderline aggressive look to it. What I love about this is the opening down here. We have this fin. To me, it's definitely one of the best cars BMW has ever made, and it's very hard to beat this type of performance, and in addition to the looks of this M2CS. I think it's just a fantastic car overall, and it feels like in many ways this was, for me at least, peak BMW, both when it comes, as I said, to the performance and the interior styling. Just enough technology with some traditional sense for the layout of stuff in here. So I think it's, in that sense, I do think this is very close to being the perfect BMW ever made. If you're interested in this one...
What a thing. What a thing. This car, you've got to drive one of these things. That's all I'm going to say. You have got to drive an M2CS. I think this could be the last great, and I mean truly great, BMW M car, because you've just got all that power that I said. You know, you can use it, it's so usable, it's so tractable, and that's what these cars are about. The driver's car at the end of the day. And yes, I know you've got to market these things to people all over the world, but this is a driver's car. If you are serious about your driving, you like your driving, the BMW M2CS is right up there with the very best. It has instantly slotted into my top 3 cars ever. And yeah, I want to own one of these. I really do. It's just absolutely a wonderful car. There's nothing I would change about this at all. Really, I mean, I've been driving this for a few days now, and I've been thinking, what would I change? What would I alter? I don't think I'd change a single thing. This, out of the box, as is absolutely perfect. Thank you, BMW engineers, BMW M engineers, if you're seeing this. You've done a stellar job. This car is fantastic. You need to go and drive one of these things. If you ever get the chance, do not pass up an opportunity to drive an M2CS.
Last year now, still active in both the Pilot Challenge and the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for BMW, racing the GT4 and the GT3 versions of their BMW M4s and M3s. And he's going to have to do it the hard way in this race. Now, the last time I did anything like this with quote-unquote legends, it ended with a lot of broken cars at turn 1 of Hockenheim. And that's
straight and narrow. Then those 3 drivers that we talked so much about are heading to the podium. Steve Soper might have fallen off in the closing stages, but just clung on to 3rd position.
Before the race started, there was a great collegiate atmosphere down on the grid with Jean Todt having a good chat with all the drivers. And before we got underway, as the drivers got kitted up, we actually had a recreation of a Le Mans start. Some of the drivers were more sprightly than others. Remember, Howard Gross is 80 years old. Reverse grid from the qualifying times set earlier in the weekend. It was a very short hold indeed that sent the cars down to the first corner, and a little conflagration that took out Olaf Manthey, Eric van der Poel, and ultimately Dirk Eerdorf. Their three M2s stuck down there. Van der Poel coming off the worst. He was actually, I think his car was, well, no, he did have some damage on the right front. I was about to say, I think his car was the least damaged, but playing to the crowd down there. And when you've got former touring car drivers in a field, then you are going to have a bit of panel rubbing, aren't you?
Yeah, it's always going to be the natural case, and there was plenty of that because the cars are so evenly matched, and actually a lot of the drivers turned out to be as well. then they was really getting their sleeves rolled up and the elbows out in cases. Loved that move from Steve Soper as he smacked the curb, but got the car a couple of feet up in the air as he did at the first corner, and then at the end of the very same lap, all over the grass, to unfortunately for him give away the second place to Jonny Cecotto. But both cars, or all three cars actually, had been worked very, very hard throughout. Testament to what a great build this brand new car is, with some classic drivers at the wheels.
What would have happened if he'd been on the podium? He would have to present the trophy to himself.
Yeah, I think he would. Yeah, with the champagne now about to be sprayed, and Francesca does the sensible thing in dodging clear. But Bill Auberlen getting a deserved dousing there after, well, through the middle part of the race, starting to dominate, but he had to work very, very hard before that. And the boys either side of him still making sure.
BMW M2CS. Continue. Great. Stig. Long cross. Weather. Excellent. 3, 2, 1. Drift.
Be honest here, you're talking about a car of which there are only a handful like this in the country. I really mean that. Maybe half a dozen like this car, if that. And people liked it. Mr. Harris, I think understandably, loves his. We're unlikely to see anything quite like this ever again. I'm sure the next one will wind up being even faster and even more competent, but that's not really what the M2 has ever been about.
I always liked the M2. I always liked the 2 Series. It's a fun car. You know,
Agreed.
M2 was good.
Me too.
M2 competition was a little better. It was, it was a little hardcore, but
yeah,
this is not like. This is such a giant, and I should have known because it's a CS, and I've driven the M4CS, but I didn't. I wasn't prepared for it. Yeah, it is. I think it's the best driving BMW, therefore the best BMW ever made. It's just such a complete package. We did a thing against a GT4. I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
So we had the Porsche GT4, manual versus manual, right?
Nice.
So we had this young guy, Nicky Kekian, works for us. Great driver, good kid, young, but he hasn't driven a lot, but So
it's a good potential.
We're going up the hill, and we drive 25 miles up, and we stop, and he gets out of the Porsche, and he's like, Johnny, I know I haven't driven as many things as you have, but I'm telling you, this Porsche, it feels like an extension of me. I've never driven such a pure, wonderful car. Like, I can't imagine how the BMW could be any better. I go, okay, well, let's swap and go over here. We swap. He gets out. He goes, man, I was wrong. This BMW is so much more fun. And that's what it comes down to is, and I ended that review. I said, like, while there's, no doubt that the Porsche GT4 is the 3rd or 4th best driving Porsche on sale today, there's equally as little doubt that this is the best BMW ever made, period. Like, it's just, it's that good. It's the complete everything. Yeah. Again, the M2CS, like, it feels like there's only one piece of suspension. It's perfect around corners. The engine's a delight. The brakes, I drove both cars had the carbon brakes. Like, oh my God,
nice.
The best feeling brakes.
you know, just a masterpiece of a car. Like I can't even think of anything that's wrong with it. You know, it's you know, it looks really cool. And just so much fun to drive. Just such a pure, wonderful driving experience. I think, and these engineers, they've been working on the 2 Series for a decade at this point. Like they really know. And this, so then finally at the end they go, okay, here's one where the accountants are out of the room. What's it gonna take? You know, like don't worry about the money. We'll charge, you know, $86,000 for a 2 Series. And they go, okay, well, I do this, and then that's what you wind up with. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so that was actually what I wanted to ask about, actually 2 things. One, the pricing. I mean, I think that's the main thing that people complain about because it can get up to $90K. And people say that it's a little bit too much for an M2. So what do you think about that one?
Over. I mean, the one we had was 96 with the carbon brakes.
Okay, yeah, carbon brakes.
And then the dealers are putting a $15,000, you know, so $110,000. Again, you know, that's what it takes to make that car do that. It's a limited car, you know, so are there 2,500 people on planet Earth who will see the value of it?
Probably.
Yeah, you know, and is it worth it? And you know, I don't know. It's like there's certain cars that I climb into and immediately it's like, ooh, you know, and like Porsche GT3s tend to do that because again, they're just, I really like, how do I put this? Like single purpose vehicles, right? A GT3 is meant to do things on a track, right? It's not meant to be comfortable going to the store. You know, the Shelby GT350R is again meant for a track. A Toyota Land Cruiser is meant for off-road. And it's not a Swiss Army knife. It doesn't do a lot of things well, but it does one thing so goddamn well. And that's how the M2CS to me is. It's this, I didn't drive it on a track admittedly, but it's this canyon monster. It's just so alive and wonderful. You know, and if you love driving, you know, is $90,000 a lot to pay to know that you're going to have this terrific experience every time you go to drive your car? Like, no, it's not. It's actually, that's a pretty good price.
Gotcha.
I think this M2CS, like I said, is better than like any BMW I've ever driven. You know.
Yeah.
So and most other cars too, not just BMWs. Like it's good. You know, I happen to drive it. Like a week before I drove a 911 Carrera.
I remember you posted that.
Carrera S, and I was like, man, I would totally take the M2 over the Porsche. Like, not even a question.
So if you have the means and you can get your hands on one of these M2CSs, it's an epic vehicle. And I do hope that if you're going out to buy a vehicle like this, that it won't just be a collector's item. Yes, it is limited edition and it is quite special, but the joy of the M2CS is getting it out on the road and exercising it within reason. I know if this was my personal vehicle, I would love it and drive it every single day.
No, I officially want an M2 Club Sport. But yeah, I really want one. I'm blown away by the M2 Club Sport. And yeah, on that bombshell, it is for me. Ciao for now.
The M2CS or Club Sport is the last of this particular generation M2, and some would say the last two raw for a very specific type of car. Light, manual, raw, the M2 is designed for one thing: pure driving excellence. So years upon years of M cars have touted the exact same story: pure driving machines. But M cars of modern era are a lot different. They're running automatic transmissions, a whole host of electronic nannies and aids, and they're getting bigger and bigger. But somehow the M2 has managed to stay true to its roots. Debuting in 2016, the M2 has gone through multiple changes and is known to have quite a brutish personality and a couple of small flaws. Flaws that this particular CS model aimed to fix, and for the most part it does. But the magic of the M2CS is how this car makes its heritage come alive. And there's no real reason to review this car. The reason the car is with us today is to talk about how special it is to engineer something like this to be unique. The M2CS
from the moment you touch the start button feels special. And it's because it's basically made up of pieces of its ancestors. The steering feels like an E90 in a good way. The gearbox vibrates with the engine like an M Roadster or an M Coupe from the late 90s, early 2000s. It's touchy, peaky almost like the 1M. It's raw and it'll snap oversteer like nobody's business, like the second generation Z4M and the Z4M Roadster and M Coupe. This car is the culmination of nearly 40 years of M experience put into the last generation short wheelbase rear wheel drive platform that BMW has. This M2CS is to be the last of its breed. And that's kind of sad. The way this car feels is absolutely electric. Would I want the steering to be a bit more talkative? Yes. It turns like nothing else BMW makes. But I would like the steering to be more talkative. I can forgive it. It's got 550 Newton meters of torque in any gear, and it comes on so strong and so smoothly. It's really aggressive and extremely touchy at times. But that's kind of the point of a car like this. I think that this is one of the best BMWs ever made. And I don't say that lightly. I realize that there's some amazing cars out there in BMW's portfolio, and they have more amazing cars coming, and there's some incredible, capable cars. But in the last, I dare say, 10 years, in the last 3 generations of BMW that I've driven, nothing quite feels as unique as this. I think the only thing that I can imagine can get as close would be a E46 CSL, and I haven't had the pleasure of driving one. These are going to be absolute classics. This car is absolutely raw. It will try to kill you. If you're not on top of it, it's butt out, sliding around. Thank God for MDM. I kind of have to swoon over it because reviewing it's pointless. If you already have one of these, you're one lucky SOB, and you better go out and enjoy it. Don't sit it in a garage. Don't play games with it. Don't show it off and never let it out in the rain. Take the car out and love this experience that is dying. Well, this experience that after this generation of M2 is dead. So from a technical perspective, there's a couple of really special things about the M2CS. The S55 3-liter inline-6 with a couple of turbos part hasn't changed, but it has been upgraded. So you're looking at 331 kilowatts and 550 newton meters of torque across a little bit bigger band. Due to that, BMW has also had to add some cooling to the system along with an engine oil cooler. The gearbox hasn't changed that much, and performance differential out back, but you do have a ton of carbon bits, which keeps the weight a little bit lighter in this car. You still get the gorgeous carbon strut brace, but now you have a carbon reinforced hood, a carbon front splitter, a carbon rear splitter and spoiler, carbon mirror caps, and a full weave carbon roof. And inside you have lightweight seats and a carbon fiber center console. As far as brakes are concerned, the package does get upgraded. You get lighter wheels, so better unsprung mass, but also updated brakes, so 6 piston calipers out front to grab massive disc, and it feels a lot better on the pedal than the old M2 Comp did for whatever reason. So dynamically, this car is essentially an M2 competition that's had a line of Coke. So you got super sticky Michelin Pilot Sport Cup tires, adaptive suspension, which is new for the M2 platform, same mode, so Sport Plus, Sport, Efficient, adaptive suspension, Sport Plus, Sport, Comfort, the electromagnetic steering thing that BMW does okay at. It's not great. I wish it was better. But when you throw this car into a corner, you immediately can tell that this has been well thought out. Yes, it will snap on you. Yes, it will fight you a little bit mid-corner, but this is a brilliant M car, and it feels like a proper M. It feels like M cars of old. This car reminds me a lot of an E46 who's had a turbo slapped onto it, well thought out, and then just shot down the freeway with some sticky tires. It's brilliant in the hands. I dare say this is probably the best rear-wheel drive sports car on sale in this bracket. It's like the M2 competition was 8/10 of what M can do. This is 10/10. This is the whole picture. If you want to know what BMW M is all about, get your hand on one of these. And what this car proves is that someone in Munich has a sense of humor and loves what they do. And oftentimes as car people, we get in a new car with all this beautiful technology, all the great electronics, all the assistants, all the nannies, everything. And we think this car is, amazing because it's got all the new things. When in reality, some of the best cars are built by people who actually care about driving. And you can tell from the moment you get in, the moment you touch the gear level, the moment it crackles on startup, that this car was built by somebody who cares. And somebody's bum sat in the seat going around a racetrack going, that's not good enough. It needs to be sharper, it needs to be harsher, it needs to be more ferocious, it needs to bark louder, it needs to fight. And then someone else higher up said, yes, that's it. And that puts a little bit more faith in humanity for me. Just a little bit more. This generation of M2 could in fact mark the end to a very important era for BMW. And with all the CX examples now being handed over to their owners, this is probably the last chance I'm going to get to enjoy one. So, I'll see you next time.
Made to slide. What a machine. Like my yellow car, I'm in the middle of a bit of a love affair with this thing. It's everything I want in an M car. See, I think this is the last of an era. I really do. Every time I drive it, I just think I'm in a compact rear-wheel drive BMW with a shitload of power. And I couldn't really ask for more. Those are the cars I've always loved as a journalist. And it feels like a BMW inside. It's got two clock faces in front of me. It's got a driver-centric dashboard that's pointed towards me. It's got a familiar gear lever. It is a modern car, but it's the oldest feeling BMW M car, and I love that.
So we whittled the 16 down to our final 8. It's a great group, I have to say. This year, the nice thing is, yes, we've got all the big hitters with the Ferrari and the McLaren and the Porsche and the Lamborghini.
This M2CS on track was hilarious, but of course you can't drive it in any way, shape or form like that on the road. So you're looking for different things from that car.
I was very, very fond of the M2, M2CS, just because that's very much my kind of car almost.
The M2CS just seems to be perfectly proportioned for UK roads, and that's getting a lot of attention from us at the moment, and people grabbing the keys and taking it off. So yeah, it's proven to fall into place as we expected it to do, sort of on the first day out on the road, and I'm sure everything will change again later on this afternoon.
I had an amazing drive in the BMW, the M2CS. There's a fantastic piece of road down in the valley down there, and that's just a lovely car that, again, like I was saying, you don't have to be driving it super quickly, it just flows and it feels rear-wheel drive, and the gearbox seems to be getting better and better as well. It's a distinctly BMW gearbox. I think anybody that has felt the BMW manual gearbox over the last 30 years, you could be blindfolded, sit in the car, and you'd instantly know what it was.
Well, it's Our Evo Car of the Year for 2020 is the BMW M2CS. Personally, I'm absolutely delighted at that because I think it's a great car. I didn't put it top of my list, I put it at second, but I think its secret of its success was that everyone loved it who drove it. And then the winner, which was also my winner, which is something of a rarity, I think, in the Evo Car of the Year, the BMW M2CS, which is just a fabulous car in so many respects. It has that thing of being brilliant at all speeds. Still stunningly quick. It's got such a smooth engine, but it's also got a fabulous manual gear shift. It's, again, like I was saying at the beginning, it's even more sort of basic. If you're drawing up the idea of almost the perfect car, you've got multi-cylinder engine at the front, power going to the rear wheels, then slip diff, manual gearbox. What more do you need? Which one I'd take home? I'd take home the M2CS. It was my winner, it's the winner overall, and that's one of the things I think when it comes down to judging, when you're trying to separate all these cars, it's right, you've got the choice of all these keys in front of you, which one are you going to take? And yeah, for me it would be the winner, it would be the BMW.
I am going to drive home in the M2 because that's what I'm delivering back to the office, so yeah, couldn't get better really, could it?
Fresh air and driving, boys. It's hard work, you know. It looks easy.
First, we start with one of the best driver's cars you and I have experienced over the past 4 years. Then we add, say, 39 extra horsepower. Then we change the construction of the vehicle, use a lot more exotic materials, and by doing so, lower the weight by about 55 pounds. The CS is all about the construction. Specifically, a number of the body panels are now made of carbon fiber reinforced polymer. There's smaller bits like the splitter in the front, the rear diffuser, and the mirrors, but then there's bigger parts like the roof and the hood, all carbon fiber reinforced polymer. Then to go along with that, the length of the console on the inside of the car is also carbon fiber, and then not specific to the CS, but something I still have to point out, the bracing underneath the hood is carbon fiber. Now, of course, if you're going to make a significant percentage of the exterior out of frankincense and myrrh, it would only stand to reason to make the interior a bit more fancy as well. There they've enlisted the help of a lot of Alcantara, specifically on the dashboard, the steering wheel, portions of the seat, and the armrest. Now, if you are Munich and you want to extract the most money out of hardcore drivers, then you would have to make the spoiler out of carbon fiber reinforced polymer as well. Now, a huge note about the weight delta in all these parts. Most of it, it's not a big difference. Where the big difference lies is the hood. By switching from steel to carbon fiber reinforced polymer, it halves the weight of the hood alone. But it is by far the best BMW makes. That's all I got because this thing was incredible and I'm going to cry like a baby when they take it from me.
And that's because it's the M2CS, the third special edition of the day. It's the final and greatest version of an already great car, trimmed all over in carbon fiber and aerobits, upgraded to 444 horsepower, sitting on sticky Cup 2 tires, and given adaptive dampers. The M2CS is a perfect example of what the ultimate BMW M car can be.
That means that compared to the M2 competition and the M2, the original one, which I have tracked, this is the best possible version of the best possible car. Every single thing about this car on the track is absolutely perfect. turn into a corner, and it creates front-end G-forces that are absolutely unbelievable. It is easily the most fun, most sorted sports car I think I've ever driven. And that's a lot. I've driven the Cayman. The Cayman is more serious than this. This does the same stuff that the Cayman does, but with a big eating grin on its face. But the thing is that the soul, the heart of the M2 is still there. It's still, what's the word? It will catch you out if you're not ready. Once you chuck it into a higher speed corner, you just gotta be on it, you really do. Did I mess up the exit of that drift? Yes. Does it matter? No, because I'm having fun. Look at my hair, look at this. This hair is having as much fun as I am. I just can't stop doing this. Oh my God. This car is so good. Okay, so I know I'm being an idiot and sliding the car around, because it's like the most fun car ever. But I want you to know that the upgrades that have been made to the M2CS, whether it's the aero, the weight reduction, the damping, the tires, they make it objectively better as a lap time car. I already know it's going to be faster than the M2 competition. But the question is, by how much?
It's disappointing?
Yeah.
No, I like this car.
It's disappointing because I don't own one.
Uh-huh.
And because I drove it, and it is,
yeah,
without question, by far and away, the best sports car in the world right now.
It's a ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous claim.
Statement.
Like, yeah, obviously, like the Cayman and all that stuff.
Even this B loves
it. The B, he loves it. Yeah, you okay?
Yeah.
If all things considered, in terms of the livability, the fact that there's a rear seat, the fact that it has all of the cool, and it looks amazing, and it does at a time like that, means that it is an absolutely mind-boggling, sensationally perfect car.
That's an astonishing time.
It is an astonishing time, James. Like, I'm so blown away by it. Like, I looked at the time, I was like, that can't be right. But
you're a bastard. You're a bastard. I'll tell you why. You're standing among 3 cars that are being marked up at the moment.
Yes.
And all you're doing is saying how good this is. You're not helping anyone.
I'm not helping me because I want one of these. No, honestly, it was just like for though, even if that was a GT350R standing in front of me,
you'd still go for this.
This is the choice. It's just such an unbelievable machine. And I really, really don't think that BMW is going to top this with the next M2.
Yeah.
They're just not going to be able to do it. It's just impossible.
This is... For now then, today's crown, and one that you have to pay handsomely for, goes to the M2CS. It really is that great. The new M4 is fun to drive, don't get me wrong, but the M2CS is the whole package. Blistering performance and endless smiles. It's a car that you genuinely feel excited to stand beside.
The reason I keep turning back to this almost every single day is that it is pretty much the best BMW M car that I've ever driven. I think it's going to be perhaps the last great M car that we'll ever have. It links so nicely back to the E30 in not just the size, shape and purpose, but the notoriety with us petrol heads as well. And I always say it reminds me of something like a Porsche GT car in terms of the sheer handling capability, the grip, the responsiveness of the engine, the amazing gearbox, but to a reduced level. So punching way above its weight and giving the driver a really epic experience. And what's brought that to the CS specifically versus the competition are these small changes that BMW M have put in the right places in order to make such a huge effect at the end of it. This is one of the best automatic boxes you'll ever lay hands on, okay? It's very much like the Porsche GT cars in how quick it shifts.
Today we're talking Supra. And no, we're not a little late to the conversation. There's a lot you haven't been told. exists because BMW has a crush on the Toyota Mirai. Ew. And then there's this BMW M2CS. This is also not a new car. The M2 is in its last year, and the CS is its final variant. Now fortified with the M3's 444 horsepower engine, it makes a hellacious noise. It has carbon ceramic brakes, carbon fiber hood and roof, and lightweight seats that probably weigh 4 pounds more. With a wheelbase 9 inches longer than the Supras, but you're not sitting on the back axle, so it doesn't feel like you're driving a skid steer. This is not just BMW's best car of the moment. This is BMW. It's a direct descendant of the 2002. A tall, dorky, obnoxious little brat of a two-door sedan. You knew that the successor to the Mark IV Supra was a BMW, but it's not the one with the Toyota badge on it. It's that one.
Yeah, a little bit there. This car is unreal to drive. You guys for giving it to us because this is probably the best car I've driven all year. Like we love the LC500, we love the Aventador, the F12. This is probably the best car we've ever.
This is the most enjoyment because it's manual where a lot of those cars weren't.
And we're not going to get into trouble, at least not as easily. Like, this is just such a great car.
And then what about anything about this?
Best looking modern BMW by a long shot.
Because it's the last gen BMW.
Yeah.
This is the best.
This is so much better.
God, what don't you people understand? Why aren't you even buying these yet?
This is it!
You also buy our merch?
Yeah, right here. If you had to give me one car and you were gonna murder my whole family and I had to drift some specific corner and the only reason that they could survive is that I drifted at first try, this is the car I would pick, in the world.
Or maybe the 370 Z Nismo.
I wouldn't, I would pick this. This is just an animal. Like, this is so perfect to drive. That one was
nothing. There's nothing wrong with this car.
You made the perfect car, BMW. Holy shit.
Hey, there's still some plastic on a bunch of stuff in this BMW. Should we do a peeling off plastic subscription break? I think everyone should spend as much money as they can to guarantee that they own one of these.
Yeah.
And it's probably just the best thing to do, and just waste all your money on it and go into debt to get it.
Yeah, and if you ordered one of these, or if you have one of these, I would like to meet you eventually because you are one of the smartest people that I've ever not met yet.
You're watching ThrottleHouse. I'm Thomas.
And I'm James.
And this is maybe the last great M car.
I don't want to say that this is peak BMW, but this might actually be peak BMW. Well, currently, as far as we know, it's not just downhill from here. It's like a plummeting chasm of despair.
Anyway, so what's important to note is that this is what an M car should look like.
Yes.
And
so brilliant, in fact, that at the end of the day, James and I literally had a discussion about whether or not we should buy it. And even though we eventually talked ourselves out of it, the fact we considered it alone tells you what you need to know about the M2CS. It's the most special and, dare I say, correct feeling BMW that exists right now. And no matter what choices the company makes in the future, the existence of this car can always remind us what the brand really stands for. Driving.
Gucken wir mal, was der Kollege so möchte, ne? Oh Gott, ist das schön. man diese Wolken da gesehen? Es wäre schon schön, wenn man die sehen könnte, ne? Aber man weiß es halt nie so ganz genau. Jetzt haben wir Gegenverkehr. Und das Ganze handgeschaltet. Ich weiß nicht, wie oft ich das noch sagen kann, sagen muss. Es ist einfach eine Sensation, dass das Ding handgerissen ist. Ich bin wirklich am Überlegen, ob ich den kaufe. Weil das ist ein Auto, was halt wahrscheinlich mein Ultra...
pretty unique, and I'm sure that's going to go down as one of the best and yet still mechanically analog nature in terms of feel to the driver. Examples that the brand has built in the second or third decade of 2000 here. It's very far departure from our E30 M3s that we all fell in love with. Must be that we're really going to fall hard in love with this car, as I'm sure all the other 500 and some other M2CS owners are as well. This is number 86 of those built, by the way.